we have back on the show a friend of the show, Lord Cyrus, lifetime ruler of Moldavia. How are you doing, Lord Cyrus?
Fantastic, Conan. Great to be back with you again.
Yes. Can I just say something before you start to put yourself over?
Please.
Okay, as if it wasn't enough that your Paraguayan taffy was such a hit in the South American school system, and also I want to give shouts out to the Cyrus Foundation, who planted trees in urban communities around the globe, and of course the famous turkey giveaways. Mm-hmm. And I also got to give props to your great grandfather for inventing the bong and the vape pen. You're a massive star. TV icon. You can't walk the streets of Sri Lanka, Haiti, or Guatemala. Mm-mm. You were ahead of your time with the masks in Japan. Like, you already knew that the pandemic was coming. You were the golden hand of booking with Omega and Jericho, who broke records, and the Golden Lovers. So I'm going to call you now the Golden Matchmaker. All right. And, I know that you helped with this Operation Warp Speed, getting Pfizer and Moderna to get out the vaccine. So on behalf of all humanity, I want to thank you, Lord Cyrus.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. These are just little projects I work on in my spare time, Conan. But, here's the thing. You said before I put myself over. Right. As you've probably seen, if you've picked up a newspaper, if you have turned on a television set or opened up your laptop or looked on your phone, I don't need to put myself over because everyone's already doing that. Because, Conan, you understand this because you've made some historical moves yourself. Disco's made hysterical moves, not historical moves.
That is
true.
But
for me, the thing is, look, there are very few people, not just in wrestling. Well, there's no one in wrestling who has changed the course of wrestling history not once but twice. I don't know that there's anyone in history. I mean, you look at Winston Churchill, George Washington. There are, Rockefeller. I mean, I don't know that there's anyone who has changed the course of history twice. If you do it once, they call you a revolutionary and a genius. If you do it twice, they call you a saint. And I think that's where I'm at. And for me, it's really about a higher level of consciousness. The trolls and the drones out there will refer to me as a manipulative carny who pulled the wool over somebody's eyes. The reality is that Kenny Omega and Don Callis are next level consciousness. I am really like the Dalai Lama compared to all of the minute thinkers that exist in pro wrestling who live minute to minute, look into their TV set or their Twitter to figure out what they should do and what they should think and what they want to watch. Some people change the channel. I change history.
I can't argue with any of that, but I would like to ask you for a favor. You know how you called yourself the Golden Hand of Booking?
The invisible hand, but I have been called the Golden Booker.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because Disco wants to use that term, the Golden Hand, when he does a of the week at Sapphires, and you're going to like this, Don. It used to be called the Shake Shack, but in honor of Todd Bridges, it's now known as Different Strokes. Nothing?
I never watched that show, actually.
Tremendous show. I'm mystified by Disco's silence.
Can I speak?
Yes, you can.
Let's get down and stretch that here. So, Don, what we saw here is you took the AEW clan to the cleaners. Which point of phrase here? No pun intended. But the perception here from people like me and Conan and people in the business is that you basically were negotiating with a bunch of marks. Like, these guys, Tony Khan has never been in the business. He's bought a company so he could write the shows. Kenny and the Bucks have never been an executive vice president position and everything. From a negotiating standpoint, when you went in there to negotiate with these guys, they were obviously at a tremendous disadvantage. It's funny how the mainstream wrestling media doesn't really report that narrative, but that's what happened. That's what we know. What was it like negotiating with these people to get Kenny Omega to use on your show? Can you hear me?
Yeah, thankfully you cut out, but now you're back.
Okay. So basically what happened here is you took them to the cleaners. Mm-hmm. They didn't stand a chance negotiating against you because these guys are rookies at what they're doing. What did you feel like when you went in there and were trying to get Kenny for the show and sort of thing? How did that go down and how easy was it to work those guys?
I don't know what negotiations you're talking about. There were no negotiations. I was asked to come there and do commentary because of my relationship with Kenny. This is something that I thought of years ago, and Kenny and I's relationship goes back 27 years.
Does it really?
You know, when I did commentary in New Japan.
Real quick. You know him 27 years?
Correct.
How what did you guys meet in wrestling, or was it before wrestling?
Well, you're literally the only person on the planet who doesn't know this story. But the Golden Sheik,
it's cool to call him a moron, Don.
No, I'm not a mark, right? So I don't know all these, the Kenny Omega Don Callis story. I'm sorry.
The other, there was a famous independent wrestler in Canada named the Golden Sheik, wrestled in Western Canada.
I remember.
He actually trained me as a wrestler.
Wait. Disco says he remembers him. You remember?
Yeah, I've seen the photos and stuff of the Golden Sheik. I've
never seen him.
Yeah,
I have.
So the Sheik trained me as a wrestler, and then when I had my first match, he was my manager because he had decided to get out of wrestling and start managing. So he was my manager, and he looked after me. And Disco, you'll remember the way that older guys didn't look after younger guys; they abused them. And the Sheik looked after me, and he introduced me to his nephew, 10 years old at the time, curly-haired kid from Winnipeg. And I became, when the Sheik passed away, I delivered the eulogy at that funeral, and I sort of adopted Kenny. I started looking after Kenny. I was the invisible hand, if you will, in Kenny Omega's life. And I gave Kenny his first break in wrestling, put him on television in Winnipeg, and I guided Kenny throughout his life, his personal life, his career, everything, and family dinners, the whole deal. So it goes back 27 years, and there's no negotiation. I was asked to come and do commentary. We all recognize I called Kenny's most famous matches in Japan, so it makes total sense that Tony Khan would want me to come and do that. You don't need to negotiate when you have the best wrestler in the world. Kenny Omega is the best wrestler on the planet.
No, he's not.
Number 2 and 3.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Wait a minute, Don. We're having the first confrontation.
Okay, so he's not the greatest wrestler in the world. All right, and let me make something very clear. And I want to ask you this because I'm so sure you saw it too. Were you knowing? Okay, the Kenny Omega that was in Japan that you called his greatest matches of all time, everything. His first year in AEW, would you say that we got the best version of Kenny Omega, or were you honestly? I mean, me and Conan have been talking about this on the show. The cleaner, the Kenny Omega character, the New Japan character that we saw. Okay, we saw nothing like that the first year of AEW. What we saw is a guy that walked out there in a shorts and t-shirt, very mild-mannered, not very over-the-top charismatic. Just his interviews were not that good. Were you watching him and saying, like, boy, if I got in there with him, I could really give him a boost? Because I'll be honest with you and Kenny Omega now. This is the first time Kenny Omega's been interesting in AEW, to be honest, in my opinion. With him, did you see? Did you feel the same thing that me and Conan felt that while you're watching AEW TV that he's being underutilized?
Sorry, I lost you there, Disco.
Okay, here's a question. Here's a question. In the first year of AEW, would you agree, or did you see the same thing that me and Conan saw, that this guy was being underutilized from the iteration of the cleaner character that we saw in New Japan? We were seeing nothing like that in him. We saw a basically laid-back guy that wore T-shirt and shorts on the show and just like nothing. We didn't see the star. Did you feel that too when you were watching him and feel that you could help him if you got in here to AEW?
I don't watch wrestling. I don't watch any wrestling. I've never watched wrestling. People who watch wrestling make short-sighted minute-to-minute decisions. I don't really care whatever Kenny's done. Look, the reality is that professional wrestling for Kenny is easy. It's actually pathetic how easy it is for him. Kenny Omega can give 5% and still be better than everyone on our roster. So I didn't watch him, so I can't even comment. I don't.
Well, let me tell you. Let me bring you up to speed. What we saw in Japan was not what we were seeing in AEW. We weren't seeing that working machine that he is. We weren't seeing anything that would make you think he was a star. And when you came in there, and I really wish you would have shown up with the Captain Steubing hat that you had on the Chris Jericho cruise with the Don Exotico mustache. I think that would have added a little bit more. But be it as it may, I thought you and Kenny were great.
Well, I appreciate that. And, like I said, many people live moment to moment. They want instant gratification. A year to Kenny Omega and Don Callis is like 10 seconds to a normal person. And I'm not going to get into a debate with Disco about anything. It would be like me debating an insect. No disrespect intended.
Well, I've never lost a debate, so it's like I could see how you wouldn't want to engage in one. So
because I'm operating on a higher plane of consciousness, and I think you need to understand that. And I don't, there was a time, Disco, when you and I got a lot of attention for the banter that we would have back and forth. Back then, I used to get angry, and now I really don't, because whatever happens minute to minute doesn't matter. What matters to me is changing the course of history. And that's what Kenny and I are doing right now. It's changing history.
How are you doing that?
Y'all are getting to watch it. Well,
how are you doing? How are you doing that?
I've done it. I did it. Am I allowed to answer questions here, or is this the Disco show? Because you guys have that every week. Now, if you guys want rating, then I'll just point out that when Kenny Omega and Don Callis are around, over 1 million people viewed our interview from Impact Wrestling. I'll point out that AEW got their highest rating when Kenny Omega and Don Callis came into AEW on a helicopter. So if you guys want ratings, then you could listen. And if you want the same old trolls policing your show, then let's just listen to Disco and all.
Well, the highest rated thing on that show was the Shaq segment.
Look, Disco, I've given a lot of people the rub, and Shaquille O'Neal is not the first, and he's not the last. So if what you want is for me to answer the question, I'm happy to answer that question for you.
I can't believe you're insulting our guest like that, Disco.
It's out of line.
Well, he's avoiding the questions.
No, he's not. He just told you he gave Shaq the rub, and he did. Nobody knew about Shaq. Nobody's talking about Shaq. Yes.
He's over the hill.
Conan, there are way more people talking about Kenny Omega and Don Callis than there are about Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Dr. J, Larry Bird. I could go on.
Let me just say this: unlike you, at least you went over on your segment. He got buried on his. But go ahead.
So, Disco, you asked the question. You want to know about history, and I know you don't like to read books, and that's unfortunate. But that makes you a lot like many people in the United States.
I don't need books. I've got Twitter.
Yeah, and I feel like.
Wait.
There was a time in my life, guys, where I would have said it's a waste of my breath, because what I'm really doing is trying to teach algebra to an insect. But for the purposes of the people listening out there, let me say this. This business was stagnant. This business was nowhere until I put together Jericho versus Omega at the Tokyo Dome. That changed everything. That created AEW. That gave birth to AEW. That's revolutionary. That's why you guys have great ratings. You get to talk about AEW. You can thank Don Callis, Kenny Omega for that. Now, many people, when you change history once, they call you a revolutionary. There's not even a word for someone who does it twice, because it's never been done. You're talking about an Einstein-level genius. You're talking about a higher level of consciousness. You're talking about Dalai Lama range of consciousness. We don't live minute to minute. We talk about decades. We talk about writing the history. And now we've done it again. People were saying, oh, there's nothing in wrestling we get excited about. Guess what? We gave you, in 10 seconds, the most exciting thing you've seen in wrestling since the last time we changed history. And that's just the facts. And we've got a trickle-down effect here. We've got a trickle-down effect here where guys like you, Disco, are now able to presumably make a better living because you've got something to talk about. You could literally talk about Don Callis and Kenny Omega 24/7. You could have a 24/7 channel. You might want to do that. I think this is great. This is great for everyone. Rising tide lifts all boats and all that stuff. So,
well, where is the rising?
I can't argue with any. I'll say this. I can't argue with any of that, Lord Cyrus.
Yeah.
Well, I can.
Thank you.
I can, and I'll argue with facts and logic.
Okay, I want to
hear. All right, number one. Where's the rising tide? We've gone through another calendar year where the total audience of professional wrestling has dropped again, okay? And for the first time in wrestling's history, we had a blueprint of fans are not watching anymore. The Variety magazine had that article where they did the survey of people that do not watch wrestling anymore. And literally the number one reason for professional wrestling, the reason for professional wrestling, people stopped watching it, is they said it was too cartoonish, okay? Professional wrestling in this past calendar year has not done anything to get away from the fact that people perceive it as too cartoonish. What do you think about? What do you think about the cartoonishness?
Before Don says anything, let me interject, Lord Cyrus. I would also like to throw this in. Nothing's going to happen overnight. The guy just got here. The word's getting out. Same thing. You build from there. Just like when we were saying, we love the Roman Reigns angle in WWE and SmackDown. You can build from there. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is step one of Don's vision. Go ahead, Lord Cyrus.
There's a parable in the Bible, guys, where a guy was starving, and Jesus didn't give him fish. He taught him how to fish. So what Kenny and I are doing is showing people the way. It's free will. I mean, people can still book their shows however they want, but we're showing you what the path is. If you want to take that path, you can take that path. It really doesn't matter. Not everyone is going to understand that higher level of consciousness that I talked about. And you know what, Disco, you can get as upset as you want. And I'm glad to hear that you do read something. I'm sad to say it's Variety magazine. You might want to try picking up a bound book, maybe learn something important.
I just, to be honest, it gives you a little known fact. History. I just ordered The Death of WCW on Amazon.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God. So you're another wrestler who reads nothing but wrestling books. That's great.
No, I want to read it to check it for accuracy, to be honest with you.
How about this? I would suggest, I was a university professor for a couple of years. Not a well-known fact. I taught international business at the best business school in Canada. And one of the things I used to do with my students is give them readings to do to prepare them for a lecture. So perhaps the next time you interview Don Callis or Kenny Omega, I would give you some readings to do, and they wouldn't be The Death of WCW, although I understand that's an entertaining book, and it certainly wouldn't be Variety magazine or the comic books you like. What the reading would be is, maybe read a biography of Winston Churchill, maybe read the Old Testament, maybe read the Quran, maybe read the Talmud, and then talk to me, because we're not even speaking the same language right now.
I'm glad.
Let me ask you a question. Did you go to the University of Toronto? Did you teach at the University of Toronto? Did you teach at the University of Toronto?
I gave guest lectures there, but that wasn't my primary university.
Where was your primary university?
The Asper School of Business.
Asper School of Business. I'm looking here at the top business schools in Canada. Okay, and I'm going to read you some of them. These are the highest: University of Toronto, University of British Columbia, Western University, University of Alberta, York University, University of Montreal, Simon Fraser, McGill, University of Calgary, University of Where's Aspen? These are the top business.
Last year, dude.
Well, I believe
he wasn't in college last year.
Disco.
Well, I'm fact checking you in real time, like we do with people that come on the show. So it's like, that's what we do. We fact check.
Lord Cyrus, let me read
what I had said was that I used to. Wait a minute. What I said was I used to teach university there. I don't anymore. I stopped that 4 years ago. 4 years ago
being one of the best business.
That's exactly when it fell off the list of the top business schools. Is when I left. Right. So there you go. So that answers your question, Disco. And I know you like to get yourself all upset, but. I hope we all understand now that, we're not talking about pro wrestling. This could be any business, really. This could be the NFL. Tony Khan's in that business, does very well, smart guy. This could be any business. The reality is that wrestling is an interesting animal, guys, because what I've been called is a manipulative carny, and you all know what that is. And there's many people that would agree. Tommy Dreamer agrees with that. Tommy Dreamer thinks I'm going to screw over all the wrestlers in the whole wrestling business. And I say, I'm going to create an environment where a guy like Tommy Dreamer, who is a real life carny, can have a job and can have a retirement. But you know what? In wrestling is the only business where being a quote unquote manipulative carny has a negative connotation. The reality is that in other businesses, when you behave in those fashions, you are what? You are successful. So what does that mean? That means I outmaneuvered someone. And Tony Khan understands this stuff. He's in the NFL. You come up against a better football team, you're going to take an L. Tony took an L. A lot of people have taken L's from Don Callis and Kenny Omega. And that's just the reality. And the problem is that you want to beat us. We're not even playing the same game. We're operating on a much different plane of consciousness than everybody else in this business. And until you can embrace that, you can't even compete. That's the reality.
Let me ask you a question.
I can't argue with any of that, Don.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Like the Dalai Lama and like Gandhi and like many other figures in history, Kenny Omega and Don Callis are going to change the course of this industry and of how people think. We want to reach people's hearts and minds because Kenny Omega is the best bout machine. He's the greatest wrestler in the world. Number 2 is not even close. Kenny Omega can operate at 10% and still be better than everyone else in this industry. That's just a reality.
Well, let me ask you this.
This title.
Let me ask you this: how come if that's true, why did Kenny Omega lose the Observer Wrestler of the Year awards last year to a 49-year-old guy that's also a friend of yours?
Voting was rigged.
So Disco, your reading list is extended from Variety magazine. This is you're quoting this like it's Pythagoras. I don't really understand. So you're saying that
I can, bro.
I'm just saying, if Kenny Omega was the greatest wrestler in the world, how did he lose the award to Chris Jericho?
I can't expect, Don, you with that higher consciousness, the Dalai Lama, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, to have to decompress and try to understand his rudimentary thinking. Please don't. Don't engage him anymore, Don.
No, I've got facts. It's the only is a thing.
Disco, please reference the PWI Top 500 now too, because I know that's an academic journal of.
Do it as referencing you. You're saying Kenny Omega is the best wrestler in the world.
I've never been someone who's liked to use the word mark, especially about someone who's in the business. But I used to always say the biggest marks are the boys in the dressing room. And I often had you in mind when I thought about that. So you're really showing that you should be buying a ticket and not behind the dressing room door.
Well, let me ask you this.
Disco.
Let me ask you this.
Go and read a book. Get a library card.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Okay, Kenny Omega. The only metric we can point to, that Kenny Omega is the greatest wrestler in the world, is the star ratings that he was given by Dave Meltzer. Okay, the publication that Dave Meltzer produces has their year-end awards, and the award was given to Chris Jericho instead of Kenny Omega. But you're using Meltzer's rating system to espouse the fact that Kenny Omega is the best wrestler in the world because his matches get the highest ratings.
So, I actually never said that.
No.
Wait, what now?
Kenny Omega is the best wrestler in the world because if you
because you say so.
If you have a
yes,
Disco, yes, because I say so, and I would challenge you, Disco, and I'll just run it down real quick. Changed history of the business twice. Only wrestler in the industry to have a master's degree in business administration. Former university professor. Saved Impact Wrestling. Whose opinion means more than mine right now? Who are you going to say? Can you name one person? You just answered your own question. You just answered your own question.
Mine. I mean, my opinion is more because I'm right more often than anybody.
Here's the great thing. Kenny Omega and Don Callis are from a little place called Winnipeg. And
it's a dump, by the way.
Winnipeg is the wrestling capital of the world.
It's a dump, though.
Three of the greatest, most impactful people in the history of the business came from Winnipeg. Roddy Piper, Kenny Omega, and Don Callis. It's very impressive.
Isn't Jericho?
I'll put Cobb County, Georgia, up against Winnipeg anytime.
Sorry, Conan, what did you say?
I'll put Cobb County. Hey, Don. I'll put Cobb County, Georgia, up against Winnipeg any day. I'll put the big boss man Marcus Bagwell and Glenn Gilberti up against you, Jericho, and Kenny Omega any day of the week.
No, he said Piper. Piper's in the group.
Piper's in there, yeah.
Piper, Omega, and Don Callis.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Piper's dead, and so is Bossman. So I'll put me and Bagwell up against you and Omega any day.
I got a
Conan,
question.
were you saying something, Conan?
Right.
Go ahead, Conan.
Did you guys throw Jericho out of the Winnipeg car? Wasn't he from there?
I think he's from Calgary or something, isn't he?
My bad. I thought he was from Winnipeg for some reason.
No. I think there's a lot of people now who want to say they're from Winnipeg because of Kenny Omega and I,
including Jericho.
That's a new thing. I'm not. Chris is my closest friend in the business. I've known him 30 years. The last thing I'm ever going to do is say anything bad about Chris Jericho. Here's how much I love Chris Jericho. I saved Chris's career when I booked the Tokyo Dome match against Kenny. Before that, I think Chris probably would have just gone to rock and roll and been very successful. Because I think he was done with wrestling. I think he may have even said that. So one of the great things about that match was not just that it'll go down in the record books as the most important match in the history of the business. One of the great things about it is that I was able to help my best friend Chris Jericho and my family Kenny Omega all in one night. And I'm still waiting for my thank you card from New Japan, and my percentage.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to thank you on behalf of the fans, and I think Disco wants to also. Go ahead, D.I.
Oh, no, I was going to say that Jericho, I don't think he ever quit, was going to quit wrestling. I think he put his price out there like $100,000 a match, and you found some marks in Japan that would pay it. I think you would.
Come on.
I mean, seriously.
I guess $100,000 for you is an impressive number. When I help my friends, it's for a lot more than $100,000. Let's just say that. So that was the other is the amount of money that was paid out for that match. Very old school, very Gotch, Hack, and Schmidt for those who follow the history of the business. So there you go. Well, this has been lovely. And I feel like I've done my charitable work by talking to Disco once a year. This has been great.
Oh, how's the foundation doing? It's Christmas time.
You know, the Don Callis Foundation is always active this time of year. We're giving out chickens and quails to people for Christmas. And we've got an army of volunteers doing very well. And we're going to continue that work right through the holidays, right into January. So Disco, I mean, I know that times are tough. Those indie bookings are drying up. So if you need a free frozen chicken for Christmas, just hit me up. I'll have someone deliver it to your trailer.
Well, thank you for your holiday hospitality.
That is very nice.
No, and listen, I understand from Conan, Disco. I assume you've been talked to. I understand this is your last day on the program, so you've had a hell of a run, and I'm sure you'll find something else. It's been great. Okay,
I just want to thank you one last time for being on the show and for helping Operation Warp Speed with the vaccines, Don.
Okay, guys. Okay.
All right.
Happy holidays. Be safe.
Be cool.
Bye.